In this video, we will be reviewing the Secret Impulse Expert Advisor by Mr. Eugen Funk. Stick around to the end to see if this is a real EA worth your time or just another MQL5 scam. This video is sponsored by Prosperity Algo and our free Golden Time Bomb Expert Advisor. Do you want to make 100+% annual returns through automating the London breakout and the opening range breakout? Then click the link in the description. So this EA really interested me because I've actually seen Mr. Eugen in several MQL5 forums, and he appears to be a very active member of the developer community. So that's likely a very good sign, as he clearly knows what he's doing. He's very involved with expert advisors and has been doing this for a long time. So when I saw that he published a gold EA, I was really excited to see what strategy he was using, because perhaps we can all learn something from it. So here we can read the sales page to get an idea of how it works. And it's quite a neat strategy. And apparently the bot enters on momentum around the New York session. So that would be a very logical strategy. And the EA detects hidden impulses via fair value gaps on lower time frames. And if the impulse is detected before or during the New York session, the EA would open a position. So maybe just to quickly show you guys what a fair value gap is. This is a concept which is really popular in ICT trading, and my understanding is when there's a large gap between two different wicks, you can see like supposedly a supply and demand imbalance has been detected. But this would actually make quite a bit of sense in this context. So effectively, if you have a very large candle which creates a gap, then you would theoretically have this fair value gap, and this would be indicative of some sort of a big movement happening in the market. So especially if you were to combine this with a time-based trigger such as the New York opening range breakout, perhaps this could actually lead to a really strong strategy. So really interesting so far. It's combining two things which I think work really well for gold, looking for large impulses in candlestick patterns, which a fair value gap would be here, combined with more like time-based triggers, which would be the New York opening range breakout. So both of this looks really interesting to date. And here it says it applies a few different like trade management strategies. It triggers a stop loss in case the momentum disappears. And sometimes it also uses a stop and reverse methodology where it triggers a stop loss but also then opens a position in the other direction. And supposedly it also adds and removes positions until profits are made. So there's quite a few interesting like trade management techniques here. And here it also runs on gold in the 1 minute, which would make sense for this type of strategy. So overall, it actually looks really interesting. We can see here that he's showing a few different back tests, and he's showing here that depending on your broker, I believe, or your price feed, there will be a little bit of differences here. So here he's saying that the main differences are the max currency DD. Interesting. So perhaps like depending on if you don't allow it to go a little bit deeper into drawdown, perhaps using some sort of recovery mechanism, the equity curve looks a little bit less smooth. So perhaps there's different settings for prop firms versus for more of a live account where you're able to kind of use a recovery mechanism. But I think we'll have to explore in a bit more detail to fully know. But yeah, so far it's looking extremely interesting, actually. I'm quite curious to reverse engineer it a bit more on my own time. And here if we check out the live signal, we can indeed see that it's been running for quite a few months to excellent results. And also here if we go through the actual trades, it does appear to be having long strings of winners. What I'm quite curious to see here and compare it to the live results is the risk reward. Because I ran a quick back test previously and it was showing a ultra high win rate with a very good risk reward, which is usually like quite statistically challenging to have. So let's do a quick look here at the statistics just to see if it matches up. So here we're seeing roughly a 80% win rate or a 78.12% win rate, which is very good, but typically this would come along with an inverted risk reward. So here we should always look at what the average profit is. This is gross profit, gross loss. Let's look for average. Here we go. Average profit versus average loss. So we're indeed seeing actually a positive risk reward. So the average profit is higher than the average loss, and we're seeing an 80% win rate, which is exceptional. Like that's actually really, really good. And it's a real account. So wow, that's actually really, really good. Now here, maybe just to quickly point out one more thing. He also said that you require an internet connection in order to use order book data from Rhythmic, which is also quite a neat concept. Like I have thought about, I actually did something similar to this once myself, whereas like it's very difficult to use actual like CFD order book data, but you can use order book data from futures because gold, like yes, technically your CFD is pegged to the spot price. However, most liquidity providers will also use the futures pricing to give people the actual price feed which CFDs are based on. Therefore, if you look at the futures order book data for gold, this can perhaps help you with a bunch of other strategies for trading. I'm not 100% sure if he's doing this. He does say he's doing this, but that would be quite an advanced strategy. So be interesting to see if he actually managed to implement that successfully. Now here, if we open up the actual MT5 terminal, you can see that I've taken the liberty of downloading the EA and running a quick backtest here on the M1. And as we can see from the graph, it is matching what he published. Excellent returns, but nothing unrealistic or impossible. Like here we're seeing, yeah, it's a 12% annual return, which is quite modest. I have a feeling that most likely the risk settings I used here on default are quite low. And the actual win rate here is very high at around 69%. And we're seeing also a positive risk reward. At first, this seemed a bit fishy to me, but when you actually go and look at the live signal, we're seeing a similar actual result there. It's not exactly the same, but we are seeing an ultra high win rate, actually better than this, with actually a positive risk reward. Not quite as high as this, but still a positive risk reward. So that's actually really surprising in a good way. And here, if we look at the graph, it's looking excellent too. I ran this with every ticks based on real ticks. And in terms of the actual strategy, I believe, like to the author's point, there is a degree of opening range breakout here. So if we look at the times in which the trades are actually executing, and I zoomed out to an H1 just to view this a bit better, we can see that it is indeed executing at the New York opening range breakout. So this would be in the 16 o'clock candles. So that corresponds to around the hours of New York market open. And we're seeing similar things here on the 19th. Here there's one which is more pre-market, so perhaps it's running a few different entry systems. And to his point here, there's also the stop and reverse mechanism sometimes happening, versus if it loses, it actually reverses and enters in the other direction. So from what I can see, the actual strategies here of like opening range breakout, as well as like the stop and reverse mechanism, are matching what he's saying in the sales page. Moreover, it's also like the performance also appears to be matching. So extremely, extremely interesting. So let me run a quick visual backtest here just to see if we can glean any more details. But before that, let's quickly pop through the inputs tab to see if we can learn something. And scale lot with balance, so it's like a lot scaling position, AI protection, so perhaps he has some sort of AI filter in there. There's a few like time filters such as closing trades before the weekend, and I'm trying to see anything else here. Nothing super indicative, honestly. The cool thing is he is giving a documentation for it, which is quite interesting. Most developers don't go into that much detail, which is definitely a nice sign. But yeah, nothing out of the ordinary appearing here. Let's run ourselves a quick visual backtest. I'll just pop this bad boy over. And I think the one thing to note here is if we go on the H1, we can see that he's running quite a few different indicators. Because he does claim to be using AI, something which could be happening is you could be using these different indicators as inputs in an artificial intelligence model. If you run any of my bots, you'll see that if you see this huge like cluster of indicators, you don't really want to make your technical analysis strategy based on so many indicators because your odds of overfitting become extremely high. However, what typically works is you can just use them as inputs in a machine learning filter. And it's just providing other pieces of data to train a model based on. So he could very well be doing that, or he could be using it to actually determine his entries and exits. But so far, I believe these indicators, like some Bollinger Bands up here, they could be used with the stop and reverse mechanism. So he could be combining price action for his opening range breakout trade combined with more of a Bollinger Band for the stop and reverse side of things. But just to maybe wrap up, This bot looks extremely promising. So this developer seems to be a very experienced and knowledgeable man, and the bot, I have yet to use it myself live, but it looks very promising. So I would encourage you guys to take a look at it. I will personally decipher it a bit more to see what's going on, because I also sell an opening range breakout strategy. It works really well, and I think we can definitely learn something from this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care. Have a great day.